Hello, welcome to Threaduary, where we will be attempting some embroidery. I'm just using an old pillowcase which I've cut up for something else before, and this is going to be for a birthday gift for my mum. She absolutely loves these Charlie Mackesy designs. They are so lovely. She's got the book, she's watched the film, she really loves them, and it was really hard to find one that I thought I could do, and I had lots of ones to choose from. If you haven't already seen his stuff, then you can take a look at his Instagram. It's so sweet. It's really nice. Unfortunately, I don't have his skill, so I'm having to use his design and I'm trying to trace over it here in pencil. That didn't really work too well. As you can see, I've got my iPad underneath and it was really hard to see the pencil lines, so I went over in pen instead, which is what you can see that I'm doing here. And that was much more successful in seeing the lines, but it did also mean that it bled just a little bit, which was a shame. But here you can see I've traced it out, and the thicker lines I've sort of doubled up. He's got a really unique sort of design, and it's all like ink work, and so the thickness of the pen comes out. So I decided that I'd start off by doing the thinner parts of the pen and the fine work. So I used 2 strands of embroidery floss to get started on that. And that's what we got up to on that night. I'm really pleased with how it's going. And that's it from the back, which is actually surprisingly neat. Who'd have thought it? So my life is very busy right now, but I've been plodding away, and it's really lovely to sit down of an evening and just do a bit of embroidery. So this is where we're at. So far, I've only used the thin strand, which has just got 2 strings to do all the fine work, and then I'm going to use a thicker one to do the other things that have a thicker line, obviously. But this is how we're looking so far. Not too bad. I haven't yet decided what I'm going to do the writing in. And I'm hoping as well that when I do it, you won't see the bleed. But yeah, this is where we're at so far. Getting there. There are loads of different stitches in embroidery, but I just used 3 for this project. Here I am doing a chain stitch, which I did my thicker line work with. It's using more strands, and it's a really good way to blend in the stitches so you can't really see where one begins and one ends. So you make a stitch and poke your needle through that stitch. You want to make sure that you've got threads on either side of the needle, and then you pull through. Unfortunately, I did pull through a lot of the strands of the pillowcase. It's just not a great fabric to work with. Then you pop your needle down along the next bit of the line and do the whole thing again. So poke your needle through, make sure you've got some thread on either side, pull that needle through once you're sure, and place down the stitch where you want it next. In this next bit, I don't quite catch the threads on either side of the needle, so I bring my needle back out a little bit and catch some threads on either side, and then just carry on as normal. Another technique that I used was satin stitch. I didn't really use it that much because I didn't have a lot of surface area that needed covering, but if you do have a lot of surface area to cover, satin stitch is a good one. You pull your needle up on one side and make sure that your thread will cover the area that you want it to. So you need your stitches to be fairly close together, but then you want to make sure that you go back up through the side that you went on in the first place. Just make sure then that you don't accidentally pull your needle through the hole that you've just done and then undo all your work. So this is a bit of satin stitch. Like I say, I didn't use very much of it for this project. I used the chain stitch and back stitching, which is what I did for the clouds there. The last technique that I used in this project was backstitch. It's a good one for line work. I'm pretty sure I did it for most of the line work of this piece. So you want to make a first stitch, which is bringing the needle up, following your line, and then putting it back down through, and that's your first stitch. But for the next one, you want to bring your needle further along past that stitch and then feed it back down through the whole of the last stitch. So needle up through, ahead of that last stitch, and then back down through the whole of the last stitch. Needle through, pull it through, back down the last hole. Needle through, further along, back down the last stitch's hole. I think it's easier to watch it than to listen to what I'm saying. Do as I do, not as I say. This is where we're at. I'm adding in some extra details. At the moment, I'm going back with the thin thread. I've got 2 strands in this bit of thread. Previously on the other ones I've used either 5 or 4 or whatever. So like for the thicker ones I used more strands in there. Yeah, this is where we're at. I'm quite pleased. Although I'm not pleased about the fact that I seem to have lost another needle. I literally just, that was a new one out because I lost the other one. Finished off the rest of the embroidery piece, and then I had to go in with some vanish to try and get rid of the bleeding that I had from the pen. And when I was doing it, as you can see here, it just made it look so much worse. Anyway, so then I put it in a wash for 15 minutes and it came out and it still had a little bit of a blue tinge. So I put some more vanish on and then put it in the wash again for another 15 minutes. So I decided that was as good as it was going to get. So I took it out the machine, let it dry. Of course, then it was really creased, so I ironed it and then I popped it back into the hoop. Now what I'm doing here is, it's called a baste stitch, and I am doing large stitches, so quite long, with fairly big gaps in between them as well. They don't have to be quite this big and quite this far apart either, but the plan is that you do all these stitches, and then what I'm doing here is I'm pulling the leftover thread and it gathers all that fabric then behind the hoop. Unfortunately, I did have a little bit too much fabric here, so I have to cut it off, which is what I'm doing here, as you can see. This is it from the back with the excess fabric cut off. I was going to put some felt on the back, but it just turned into more of a mess, so I let it be. And this is it from the front. I'm really pleased with it, actually. My mum was pleased, and yeah, if you decide to give it a go yourself, good luck. And for anyone who hasn't already seen Charlie Mackesy's work, go and take a look. It's really sweet.